This is the Start the Session video for Project 05b-Exam1Practice. We'll do Module M1 using the Follow Me or live coding. Here's a little hint. That little symbol up top there collapses all your projects. It makes it easier to sort of see where you are. This beginning part is reminding you how you get a new project. You go up to VCS, then choose Update. If you see this message here with Merge, you check the box so it doesn't show it again, and then say OK. You should see down toward the bottom a message after a few seconds saying that it's updated some files. If indeed it is updating files, you may already have 05b when you do this. This next bit is getting my windows set up. Here's a quick hint. You can click on those top little tabs up top there and do Close All to close all your windows at once. Handy if you've got just too much lying around. The next part shows you how you can get your windows to look good, just some hints there. If you have your output on the bottom, that just showed you how you can move it to the right. You'll typically want your PyCharm to take up most of the screen, not all of it, because you want to have the output from Rose Graphics stuff to appear on the screen, not underneath the PyCharm. So make your PyCharm be most of the screen. Then take the time to get your windows to be sized just right so that you can see all of your editing window. You have a nice big place for the output to appear, and you can still see the project stuff on the left, though you don't need all the details there. Problem 0 here is not intended to be hard, but it does have 3 concepts you haven't seen much of before: determining whether a number is odd or even, returning true or false, checking whether a number is prime, and doing some simple animation. The goal of this project is just to show you those because they may well appear prominently on Exam 1, so you'll want to be comfortable with them. I want to remind you that at the beginning of every project, you'll right-click on SRC and choose Mark Directory as Sources Root. That will make PyCharm hints work better, so don't forget to do that on the exam as well. Begin the project by doing to-do 1 as usual, putting your name there. Go ahead and do that right with me. You'll live code, you'll follow me as you do this project. I'll stop you at some points to have you get ahead of me, but generally just follow right along with me. Don't hesitate to stop the video if you fall behind. Next, I want to show you a couple more hints. You'll notice that I have pretty pink for my to-dos. That makes them show up vividly. I recommend that strongly to you so that you can see them clearly and not miss them on the exam. Also, I have a nice solid green for the doc strings, the specifications that are so important for you to read. So I recommend that you take the time to do what I'm doing now to set those up on yours. You start by going to File, Settings, expand Editor, and then Language Defaults. Then select Comments, expand it. Within Comments, choose Line Comment. Go off there to the right to select the color for a line comment. I choose 255 for red, 0 for green, 255 for blue. That makes a nice bright color. I recommend it to you. So do that and then say, click the X to get OK. For doc comments, those are the green things. I go down to Text. I select that thing off to the right. I choose 0 for red, 128 for green, and 0 for blue. And again, that's a nice thing. Click on the little red there to accept that. I also use the same, here's line comments again, just to show you, 255, 0, 255. And then I also use for block comments that same green, 0, 128, 0. Again, you click on the thing to the right there, bring up the thing, type in the numbers, click the red symbol. Let's continue working on our project. We go on down to to-do 2, which says to read the doc strings for 2 functions. Be sure if you see one like this, you really do read them. Here's is prime. A number comes in, and it returns true if that number is prime, false otherwise. Notice that it says that the integer, the number, is at least 2, but there's no ifs in the code. If something says in the spec that something's greater than or equal to 2, well, it is, and it's the caller's responsibility to enforce that. And it's wrong to put ifs to enforce it in this function. Notice that it says, do not touch this code. Be sure you don't touch code that says you shouldn't. Here's sum of digits coming down, takes in an integer, not called number, returns the sum of the digits in that given integer. For example, if the integer is 83,135, it returns 8 plus 3 plus 1 plus 3 plus 5, which is 20. Notice that in neither case do you need to look at the code. In fact, you shouldn't look at the code. And in both cases, you do not touch the code if it says not to touch the code. All right, we just did to do 2. Mark it done if you haven't already. Now we're ready for to do 3. It says to implement and test the function that's described above. There's some important stuff there and a hint. If you see important or hint, read them. Don't miss them on the exam. Look out for, with the to-dos, the word important or hint. In this case, the important is to use, that is, call the sum of digits function above to do some of the work for this function. And the hint is that the way you tell a number is odd is you percent to it. For example, 17% 2 is the remainder when you divide 2 into 17. It goes 8 full times with a remainder of 1. That says that 17 is odd because the remainder is 1. 18% 2 is the remainder when you divide 2 into 18. It goes 9 whole times with no remainder. The remainder is 0. That means it's even. So if m% 2 is 0, the number is even. If m% 2 is 1, the number is odd. Here's another quick hint. If you click on the little symbol at the top of the to-do there, you can minimize it, or collapse it is the word, collapse it, and that way you can see the problem statement in green and write your code without the to-do in the way once you've read the to-do. Okay, let's take the time to read this together, and then I'm going to set you off to do some coding. Problem 0 says that an integer n comes in, and it returns true if the sum of the digits in the given integer is odd. Otherwise, it returns false. Always read and digest the examples. Here it says if the given integer is 83,135, this function returns false, since 8 plus 3 plus 1 plus 3 plus 5 is 20, which is not odd. And then it goes on with 2 other examples which can be used, which are also helpful. Always, always, always read the example. Make sure you agree to the answer the example says. That tells you that first, you understand the problem, and second, it shows you how to do the code by walking you through the steps of the example. That's critical. Pause the video now and see if you can implement this function. You may have some questions, but take several minutes to try to implement it. Once you either are stuck or feel like you have the answer, or more or less have the answer, then resume the video. Again, pause the video at this point and try the problem yourself. Okay, now I'm going to work through the solution. I'm going to do it several ways, so do not type with me. Do not type with me. Wait until I finish showing you all this, and then I'll give you a chance to type your solution. I'm just sort of working through the example. The example says that if the integer is 83,135, we first calculate the sum of the digits. So that's what I'm doing. Digit sum equals sum of digits of the given n. It then says to check whether that's odd or even. So I'm going to say if that digit sum %2, because remember that's how we find odd or even, if that digit sum %2 equals 1, meaning it's odd, then I'm going to return true. Otherwise, I'm going to return false. I go ahead and check my things by running it, and I see that I did pass the test for problem 0. On the exam, look for blue. Blue is good. Check to be sure that you passed all the tests for a function. If there is any red, then your function is wrong. Your implementation is wrong. Don't make the mistake of thinking that a few reds mean that you're close. That's just not necessarily the case. Any reds, it means that your function, your implementation is wrong. You should then go to the first failed case and do the debugging techniques we saw in a previous video. Now remember, don't type the above solution yet, because I'm about to show you 2 better solutions. First one, we calculate the sum of digits just as before, but we then give an expression, remainder, to digit sum, the sum of the digits of n, %2 equal 1. Remainder is either true or false. True if it's odd, false means that that expression's even. So I can just return remainder. I'm returning true or false. Here's a still better solution. This one I'll do as a one-liner. I'll just return the expression sum of digits of n, that's the sum of the digits, %2, whether that equals 1. That expression is either true or false. So this returns either true or false. Now you can use any of these 3 solutions. They're all fine, but But once you become experienced, you'll certainly want to choose the best of the three, the middle one there. I'm going to go ahead and do a test and check that all's right. While I'm doing that, you should decide which of these three solutions you feel most comfortable with. That's the one you should use on exam 1, whatever you feel most comfortable with. Go ahead and pause the video now and type in whichever of those three solutions you feel most comfortable with, or all three if you want to see all three in your notes. Your choice, but pause the video and type in your solution. As you complete each implementation, each to-do, make it a point to commit and push your work. Go up to VCS, do commit, and then from there do the commit down at the bottom. Type a message if you don't already have one. Any message is fine. And then do a commit, but select the commit and push option there. You might want to check the reformat code box there. That just makes it reformat your code to meet certain stylistic requirements, the so-called PEP 8 standards. No harm in doing that, and it would just make your code better when you turn it in. Here's a little trick. If you see that little red box up there, like I'm showing, that means that your program is still running. Sometimes you get a program in an infinite loop, and you'll want to use that box to stop the program. Okay, so we've done problem 0A, and we mark it done. And we're then going to be ready to move on to problem 0B. 0A helped us understand how we tell whether numbers are odd or even. It also helped us see how to return true or false. 0B is going to reinforce that idea of calling functions. The previous one used the sum of digits. This one is going to use is prime. This function takes an integer n. If it returns the number of integers from 2 to n inclusive that are prime. For example, if the n is 13, we look from 2 to 13, including 2 and 13, and see that 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and 13 are prime. That's 6 of them. There are some other examples there. Again, be certain you understand the first example before you try to implement the function. Walking through that example by hand is how you come up with the code to do the function. Also note that this function has an important message. Be sure you read those. This one says that you have to call the function is prime to receive full credit. Pause the video now and see what you can do with regard to implementing this function. Take several minutes to do so. If you get what you think is correct, or you feel like you're not making progress, or you feel like you have some but need some more help, then come back to the video. But pause the video and take a few minutes to try to write the function, the implementation of the function yourself. I'm going to show a solution here in just a moment. I'm going to make a mistake in mine, so you might want to wait till I finish. Notice how I just collapsed the to-do so that I can read the def statement, the green docstring, and my code. This is a counting problem, so I start at count of 0, and I'm going to go in a range. I'm supposed to do the numbers from 2 to n. That's all but from 1 to n, so it's n minus 1, one fewer than n to go from 2 to n. I'm supposed to examine all those and see whether they're prime. So I look at if it is, and I call my function is prime, and I apply that to the variable n. I've just made a mistake. So you should be thinking about that. So anyhow, if is prime of n is true, then my count should go up by 1. Otherwise, I don't do anything. I just continue the loop. At the end of the loop, I return the count. I'm going to go ahead and run this, and we'll see that it does not pass the test. Keep in mind that when something doesn't pass tests, it doesn't give you any indication about whether you're close or not. It just means you're failing tests. So here in practice, I would look at that first test that failed. I would say the expected value was 6, but the actual was 12. I'd make sure I understood why 6 was right, and I'd do the debugging per the debugging videos we saw to find the problem. Here it's pretty easy. Perhaps by now you figured out that it's is prime of k, not n. Well, that's not right, not just k. Let's see. We want to start at 2. K starts at 0, so we need k plus 2 there. K plus 2. I'm going to go ahead and run this, make sure it still works, and then I'm going to show you an improvement to this that you can do if you wish. And so here we are. Problem 0b passed all the tests. Again, once you see blue, pass all the tests, you're good. Now, there's a warning message there saying that this can be simplified, and indeed it can. So I'm going to actually use a little hint there to do it and have it written as if is prime of k plus 2. Is prime of k plus 2 is either true or false. If it's true, count goes up by 1. If it's false, it doesn't. So this is equivalent to saying if is prime of k plus 2 double equal true. You can always omit a double equal true, but if you feel more comfortable with it there, that's fine. You'll get full credit on exam 1. But eventually you'll want to become comfortable with this. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and pause the video and type in the solution for this problem per there. Again, you can use either form, the form with the double equal true or not, your choice. Just make sure you get it right and that it all works before you continue the video. Alrighty, I just did to do 0b. I checked that the answer was right, and I'm ready to go off to 0c. In 0c, it says see a problem, see picture, 0c picture PDF. Always look at the PDF if it says so. That'll make it much easier for you to read whatever it is that the problem is trying to ask you to do. Here I'm just getting my window to be a little better. This problem 0c, takes a circle, a number n, and a window. In this example over here, the circle's that blue one, n is 6. And what this thing is supposed to do is draw n, in this case 6, more circles, same size as the given circle, all off to the right of the circle, touching each other. Now that part of the problem you should be able to do without any real difficulty. That's a relatively easy problem, perfectly fine on exam 1 if we wanted to give you an easy one. The key is that we want to do something novel. We want to have a half-second pause after each circle is drawn. I just showed you how you can again collapse the to-do so that you can see the def of the problem statement, the green, and then write your code. I'd like you to pause at this point and do just part of the problem. You should always work a problem in stages. Work a little bit, test it. Work a little bit more, test it. And don't proceed until your tests work. So here, you're going to just draw the first circle. You're going to get that first circle to show up on the screen. Pause the video and write the 2 lines that are necessary to make that first circle show up on the screen. Okay, here's my solution. I take that object circle, I do a dot, because it's an object, I can do things. Attach to shows up, and I attach it to the window. I also remember that I have to take the window and render it, the window and render it. When I do the dot trick for the render, the window dot render, I see that it has an optional argument there. I can tell that it's the seconds to pause, and so apparently that's where I put in the 0.5. Wouldn't expect you to sort of figure that out on your own probably, but that's the novel part that I wanted to show you here, so that if there is an animation problem on the exam, you'll be fine. We continue by testing this. The first test passes, blue circle. Second test on the same window, green circle. Third test on a different window, red circle. So we're doing fine so far. The problem says to draw n additional circles. Don't type the code yet. Don't type the code, but just watch what I do here, because I want to show you how I do these problems, and I think you'll find it a really good way to work. So just follow it, just watch what I'm doing here, and then at the end you'll have a chance to type it in. It says to draw n circles, so I start by making a loop that goes n times. The problem says to draw a circle each time through the loop, so I just write the code to draw a new circle. That's all I think about is the code to draw a new circle. So I've got there that new circle is an RG circle, and once I type RG.circle in the parenthesis, I pause. That's key. I pause, and it shows me I need a center and a radius. So I just type in center and radius. Now here's the secret. Having typed in those, I now work backwards to give values to center and radius. This way, I'm just thinking about one thing at a time, and I'm forced to go to the right direction. I figure out what I need. It's got some variables. I then type in the values for those variables. They're going to have some other variables. Type in those, and I just keep working backwards till I've got it all. Now in this problem, the radius doesn't change for these circles as they go. So before the loop, I set the radius to be what it will be throughout the time, throughout the loop, which is the original circle's radius, the original circle dot radius. If you aren't clear why you say circle dot radius, please make an appointment to talk with an instructor and get that straight. It's a critical issue. Okay, now I've defined radius. I've got to define center. Again, just working backwards. Center is going to be a point, so I just define RG point. I write RG point, and I pause at that point, and I see that I need an X and a Y. So I just type X comma Y there. It's all there is to it. Now at this point, I just set the original values for X and Y. The values that are the circle center's X and the circle center's Y. Notice how when I said circle dot center dot X, the dot trick didn't work for the dot X, but I know that a circle center has an X, so I know that the dot X is right. The dot trick is incredibly useful, but it's not infallible. The fact that the dot trick doesn't show something does not necessarily mean that you can't use it. It just means that PyCharm isn't smart enough to realize that you can put, in this case, dot X there. Meanwhile, I finished typing off the X and Y statements, the X being two radiuses from the original circle, the Y being the same as the original circle. I then attach my new circle and go ahead and do a test to see what's happening. I do see the new circle show. There's only one because it's all I've driven, the same one n times on top of itself. No pausing yet though. So I move that window.render into the loop and run the test again. Still no pausing because I'm only drawing the same circle on top of each other, so there's no chance for that half second to have any effect yet. To make that half second show up, I'm going to go ahead and do a render after the original circle and have a half second pause there. That should make it so that I can see things. Alrighty, so while I'm testing that, let me point out where we are. We've got the one circle drawn correctly. We've got a loop that makes that one circle draw over and over again. All we've got to do for our final step is to change the variable that has to change each time through the loop. In this case, that's X, because the circles are to appear to the right of each other. So I go on down here and I type that the new X for the next time through the loop is the old X plus a diameter, twice a radius. So I'm going to go ahead and run the program and test that it works. So I go on there and do my usual way of running. And I see a circle, and there they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 circles. So that seems like I've got the hang of that. Now I want to go back to the PDF and make sure that I've got everything right. So I'm going to go on back to that. And let's see, there were supposed to be 6 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect, perfect. On the second test, there's supposed to be 3 circles. 1, 2, 3, in addition to the original. Perfect. On the third test, well, there they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just like it said. By the way, the PDF has an error here. There are only 9 shown in the PDF there. That's just wrong. So here's our final solution. Go ahead and pause the video now and make sure that you can type this in and get it to work right. And then that'll be that. I'll go ahead and commit and push, and of course you should do the same. I want to emphasize that for all of these problems in this video, the key is not that you are able to just copy along the code. The key is that you understand these fundamental principles in the 3 problems of this video. If you have any doubts about any portion of this video, please schedule a time to meet with your instructor and talk through it.